This podcast is brought to you by Goldco. Get your free 2026 gold and silver guide at HannityGold.com today.
So I have a lot of admiration, and we've had on radio and TV, citizen journalist Nick Shirley, young man. He was at the heart of exposing all of this Somali fraud and daycare centers and so on and so forth in Minnesota. And then he went out to California, Gavin Newsom's Marxist utopia, and he even found a lot more fraud there than he found in Minnesota, which is saying a lot. Now, you would think that a state would be happy that somebody cared enough to discover the misappropriation of taxpayer dollars, but that's not the case at all. Now, unfortunately, and we'll ask Nick about this in a second, unfortunately, I've read that his security needs have gone up exponentially, which is frightening, especially in a day and age of assassination culture. And right after Charlie Kirk and after 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump, it's not a good feeling. I've lived it. I've been there. It sucks. And anyway, so he uncovered the Learning Center issue, and he's now done the same in California. Now, here's where it gets very interesting. Is California right now is trying to pass a bill that basically would criminalize investigative journalism and classify it as a misdemeanor. And what's so outrageous, and by the way, possible imprisonment and content takedown. Forget about freedom of speech. And anyway, it's Assembly Bill 2624. And this only happened after he exposed all this waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption by immigrant groups, in this case in California. And anyway, government-funded entities like the Somali learning daycare centers would then be protected from being exposed if they operated inside the state of California. Now, the state of California has an attorney general. His name is Rob Bonta. Anyway, he says the hospice fraud scheme involved fraudsters billing taxpayers when they purchased stolen identities out of state on the dark web. What does that have to do with what Nick Shirley did, which was do his job for him? Listen.
Operation Skip Trace was initially kicked off by a tip from California DHCS, Department of Healthcare Services, of a tip of alleged hospice fraud at 14 companies. DOJ's DMFEA, the Division of Medical Fraud and Elder Abuse, my team, investigated those 14 companies, plus a billing company, and 8 individuals suspected of money laundering. We found that those involved in this fraud, in this scheme, would purchase personal identifying information for people who live outside of California on the dark web, and then enroll them into covered California, enrolled.
Right, I've had enough of this. Care. He's acting as though he uncovered the fraud. Now, this investigation by citizen journalist Nick Shirley happened not that long ago. So as much as he's there bragging like they did this phenomenal job, you have millions, what ultimately will be hundreds of millions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer money, thanks to the hard work of Nick Shirley. Now, here's where it gets interesting. According to the Assembly, the California State Assembly has advanced the Assembly Bill 2624, which would allow activists and taxpayer-funded organizations to demand the removal of video evidence. Bill is aimed at boosting privacy for immigrant service providers, and according to the Assembly member Mia Bonta, in other words, the wife of the Attorney General that you just heard from, she is the one pushing this. Ostensibly, that is not what this does at all. This would ostensibly criminalize investigative journalism, citizen journalists like Nick Shirley, and he would face potential fines of $10,000, imprisonment, and they would demand that he take down the content of what he was able to discover, the corruption that he would expose. Now, this bill was made only after he exposed the mass fraud by these groups in California. Anyway, he joins us now. Some are calling it the Stop Nick Shirley Act. I can't think of a more appropriate name. How are you?
Doing great. It's a little wild world we're living in right now.
Well, by the way, welcome. This is baptism by fire. You're a young man. I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. First of all, let me just say to you, as somebody who has lived this, I read that you had to increase your security. Is all that true?
That is true. Whenever I go out and film, now I do bring security with me because as soon as I get to, like, for instance, I'll be going to California again soon. As soon as I get to, like, a hotel or I get to even, like, a gas station, people start taking photos of me, or sometimes people try to dox the hotel that I'm staying at. So now I'm not even staying at hotels.
Well, the one thing I can tell you is, and this is just unsolicited, humble advice for somebody who's been in this business for a while, is take every threat seriously. You're very wise to have security with you. The work you're doing is vital. It's very important. It's having a deep impact. It's very profound. I admire what you're doing. It takes a lot of courage. So I'm sorry that you're having to live through this. Unfortunately, it does become a part of our industry that nobody really wants to talk too much about. I've had a fatwa once on my head. One day when we're alone, I'll tell you that story. It gets pretty interesting. But, please take every precaution and be safe. Let's talk about this bill and what they're proposing here, because it really is the Stop Nick Shirley Act. The only reason this is happening is because of what you exposed.
Exactly. And what's so interesting about this bill is it specifically says, like, immigrant locations that receive taxpayer dollars. And what do we know about the fraud that just took place in California and in Minnesota? They always use these immigrant communities, whether it be Somalians or Armenians, to commit all this massive fraud because it deters people from exposing it, because then they'll be labeled as a racist or Islamophobic. And these people are also funding these exact same politicians.
I'll give you one example of how egregious this can become. And I think it was Dr. Rouse that told me this, but fully 87% of children in the Somali community in Minnesota apparently, had some type of learning disability. Did you know that? Which, by the way, is mathematically impossible on top of, based in comparisons of the general population.
Yeah, nothing surprises me anymore, but they were saying a lot of their kids had autism too, which was completely false.
Again, all of it's false. How much do you think that you've uncovered? Because you think what you have already uncovered in California is far greater than Minnesota. Do you have any estimates of the amount of money we're talking about?
Oh, literally billions of dollars. Because a lot of these estimates, for instance, the estimates in California, those estimates were only provided by the latest data that was available, and that's from 2023. So it's been going on for 3 more years now. So you could just compound that California video where I originally found 170 million. You could multiply that by 3, and you'd have nearly $600 million just in the past 3 years. So in reality, the fraud's in the billions.
Have you ever heard from, say, Gavin Newsom? Now, I know Gavin's very, very busy. He's stalking President Trump. He's half stalking me. I don't know what it is about Gavin Newsom, but I kind of live rent-free in his head. He has the highest income taxes in the country. He has the highest gas taxes, highest sales taxes, the highest poverty rate, highest homeless rate. People can't even, they don't even have water in their fire hydrants or in their reservoirs for predictable wildfires with Santa Ana winds accompanying them. People can't get permits to rebuild in the Pacific Palisades. And so he's never around. He's either podcasting, or he's a world traveler, or he's going to Davos, or he's going to Munich, or he's stalking Trump, or he's, a full-time ex-poster, full-time podcaster, now a full-time author. I'm not sure if he does anything. He's like the no-show governor. Have you ever heard from his office?
Well, they've criticized me a few times. They've made me look out to. They've tried to depict me as a pervert for exposing fraud, and they've never given me any sort of, "Hey, Nick, thank you for exposing the fraud inside our state." They've instead just tried to make me look like the bad man and criticize me.
I saw that one post that you're referring to. Who's this person that would be going to daycare centers to see if there are actual children in them, as if there's some type of implication to that. And I'm like, how about nobody was there? That's the point. These daycare centers are existent only on paper, and we're providing, God knows how many millions of dollars for daycare that's not being provided for children.
Exactly. That's the problem. And the people want to. It's so funny because they said that there was no fraud that I uncovered, and then they try to take credit for the fraud, and then they say they've been looking at it for over 40 years, the Attorney General, and then the Attorney General's wife then makes a bill to try and make exposing fraud criminal.
Now, let me ask you this question. I don't know if you have any people backing you or supporting you financially. You know, at some point here, you may need to take legal action. Are you prepared to do that?
It's a good question. I sure hope not, but it probably is inevitable. And I do probably need to start.
Oh, Nick, let me just tell you, it's inevitable. I don't want to get ahead of. I don't want you to get ahead of yourself. I'm promising you, it's inevitable. I wish I was wrong, but I know I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I'm completely self-funded, and I do accept donations from people who do want to donate, and they can contact me. They can just go to antifraudclub.com, and there's an email there where we do take in inquiries of people who do want to help support.
I mean, I can't believe you've done all of this on your own. What got you interested in this in the first place?
Well, I started to see how corrupt the government could be when I started going to the border back in 2023 and started seeing people literally get human trafficked into the United States, and then they were getting flown to shelters in New York City. And then for the past 2.5 years, every single week, I've been going all across America and across the world, quite frankly, to see what's actually happening in our own societies. And I got a glimpse of the fraud in Minnesota last June, and then this December I went and exposed it all after getting all the information on it. And it's just kind of unraveled this huge, literally a scandal from the government as far as where our taxes were going. And I hate to make it political, but these people where the fraud is being committed, I mean, Biden literally lifted open the gates so people could commit fraud. And so in Minnesota, California, and these Democrat cities and states, there is, quite frankly, billions upon billions, it could be in the hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud that was enabled to take place underneath Biden. And so now we're just finding out about it.
It really is incredible, the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse. So are you planning to go to other states? One of the states that I think you might find a lot of fertile ground would be New York State. Have you gone there yet, or are you thinking about going there?
I'm thinking about it. I think I need to go confront some people in California first and make my way up there.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. Quick break, right back. More with citizen journalist Nick Shirley on the other side. And then your calls coming up, 800-941-SEAN, our number if you want to be a part of the program as we continue.
3 hours a day of red, white, and blue. America proud. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
With Nick Shirley, citizen journalist. They have now the Stop Nick Shirley Act. I mean, it's a real law they're trying to pass in California, if you can believe it, because he exposed waste, fraud, and abuse. You know, how old are you, Nick?
I just turned 24.
All right, you're 24 years old. I think you have a very, very bright future. You're brave. You're courageous. You do a lot of hard work. You do a lot of digging, and we wish you the best. How can people get in touch with you if they want to help out what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean. And yeah, if people would like to help, they can go to antifraudclub.com, and there's an email there where people can then go and donate, or if they'd like to message me about donating, they can help there as well.
Now, do you want me to give you all the other predictions now that you've had the security threats, now that I'm telling you you're going to need a lawyer? Do you want any more predictions about what your future holds for you in terms of what's going to be difficult and hard?
Yeah, give me it all, please.
All right. The last thing I'm going to tell you, and this is the most important, whatever you do, understand the online world is phony. It is fake. It is fraudulent. You are going to have bots that will turn you into Satan himself. And if you read it, only read it if you really want to feel bad about yourself at the highest level, because a lot of that is going to be people that just hate your politics, hate what you're doing, want you to fail, want you to get discouraged. Don't ever listen to comments of these keyboard warriors that are naked in mommy and daddy's basement, in their underwear and anonymously putting up the most vile, vicious things they could possibly think of. If you get those three things down pat, I think you'll be okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that is very true. Because, there are so many critics, and there's very few people who actually go out and do the doing. And so a lot of people are.
Oh, that's another lesson you've learned already. You're a lot smarter than I was at 24, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Anyway, Nick Shirley, stay safe. God bless you. And we appreciate you coming on the program again and sharing all of this with us. We appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Hey, if you're struggling financially and you're putting even bare necessities on high-interest credit cards, there is an alternative. If you're a homeowner, you might want to consider getting a free, no-pressure, no-obligation consultation from our friends at immigrant-front. Maybe you hesitated because you're thinking, I don't want to give up my 2%, 3%, 4%, 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Well, you don't have to. That's why American Financing created what they call the Smart Equity Loan, which is a very simple, smart way to get your finances back on track without giving up that low mortgage rate that you currently have on your home. And you will have one predictable monthly payment at a much, 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 much lower rate. And you can use the equity in your home to help pay off high-interest credit card debt, get rid of it, free up your cash flow, and still keep your existing mortgage intact. You have nothing to lose. They will give you upfront and for free an analysis of your financial situation. They'll tell you if they can help you. Again, no pressure, no obligation. Give them a call, 866-615-9200, 866-615-9200, or check them out on the web. It's americanfinancing.net/Hannity.
NMLS 122334, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, APR for rates in the 5-star at 6.196% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 866-615-9200 for details about credit costs and terms. Visit www.americanfinancing.net/Hannity.
I was not able to save money in my life until my mid to late 20s. I mean, nothing. I was living paycheck to paycheck. 40 years ago, somebody got a hold of me. I wish I remembered who, but I don't, and said, put a percentage of your savings in gold and silver. And I still to this day, I follow that advice, I still to this day put a portion of every paycheck into gold and silver. And I'm not stopping. I'm so glad I did. So if you want to learn why I keep buying, why I am a customer of Goldco, just go to HannityGold.com and see how you can get 10% in free gold or silver from my partners over at Goldco. Now, they've earned my trust. Again, I'm a customer, and they will earn yours too.